Greetings, friends, and welcome to a rather cold and frosty Innsmouth. Yes, we are approaching that second special time of the year. The Halloween bunting, if I can call it that, has come down, and I think the festival bunting is going to be going up very soon. I'm one of your guides, Rob Whiten.
And I'm the other one, Tim Mendes. Yes, it's all looking a little bit terrifyingly festive at the moment. There's tinsel wrapped around the whatever they are over there.
The parts.
Yes, the things, the effigies. I don't know, whatever they are. Anyway, just don't look that direction. Look in this direction, because today we brought you directly to the Gilman House Hotel because we're going to be joined by an esteemed guest.
Yes, we are indeed. But before we tread the stairs up to room 428, we have a couple of news items.
Yeah, the first one is just a reminder that in the new year, on 10th of January in Auburn, California, the first Smith Conference will be taking place at the library there, the Carnegie Library, I believe. And there's going to be such luminaries there as S.T. Joshi and local legend Skinner. So, yeah, if you're in the area and you have an interest in Clark Ashton Smith and his works, and I believe there's going to be some of the sculptures there as well, isn't there?
I think so, yeah. There's going to be an art display here.
Yeah. So head over to that. It should be a cracking weekend.
And secondly, I'm very pleased to announce the release of my new fantasy skirmish rule set, We Want the Gold. This is a tabletop game that you can use any type of miniatures for with RPG elements. The players create and control factions of about 4 or 5 characters, and each faction will have its own characteristics. So you might have a group of wandering knights, you could have a group of rogues and thieves, there could be a necromancer and his team, you might even play as vampires or deep ones. These factions are brought together in a scenario designed by the GM, and the game is played out in the setting of that scenario. So some examples of the games we've run include The Haunted Graveyard, where we had a necromancer and his followers looking for fresh parts. There were some halfling thieves searching for buried gold. There was the local city guard. Oh, and there was a group of vampire hunters as well, led by Professor Van Halen. And of course, as well as the player characters, there are things, shall we say, lurking in the graveyard as well. So basically, you can create any kind of character, any kind of faction that you want. The GM will give you your objectives and set up the scenario, and away you go. And really the meat of the game is the interaction between the players, because with 4 or 5 factions on the table, each with different objectives, there's lots of scope for building alliances, for skullduggery and backstabbing, and of course everyone gets to laugh when someone rolls a 1 and fumbles. So that's We Want the Gold, Fantasy Skirmish Rules. That's available in a 90-page paperback. You can get it direct from me or via Amazon and the usual online retailers, and it's also available as a PDF download as well.
Is that what the rule set you were using at Innsmouth for your little setup you had there by the door?
Yes, we ran an Innsmouth scenario, so we had a faction of locals defending the town from the invading monster hunters. In most other games, there'd be the good guys, of course, but we like to switch things around a bit. And yeah, we had some other cultists looking for ghouls to, well, shall we say, to build relationships with the ghouls.
Sounds fruity. Let's just leave it there, shall we?
Let's go up the stairs before we go any further down that path, I think. And here we are. Here's our special guest for today. It's a big Gilman House welcome to Mr. Matt Sanderson. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hello. Oh, pleasure to be here.
And is this your first time in Innsmouth?
Yeah. I'm quite surprised to find somewhere that's not paid as much council tax as they have around back home, because the roads are a bit bumpy. And I swear that that fella running the bus said that this was the way to get to Hobbs End, but I have a feeling that he's either taken a bit of a detour somewhere, because this don't look like Hobbs End.
No.
No, it has a look and an ambience, and dare I say, an odour all of its own, doesn't it?
Fishy.
So, game designer, podcaster, a regular, along with Tiff, many, many gaming conventions and the like. But I think we'd like to start by asking you how you first got into weird fiction in general, and of course, Mr. Lovecraft in particular.
I remember it well. But it's actually through gaming how I found first Call of Cthulhu, and then from Call of Cthulhu, then stepping into Lovecraft. Uh, Back in the dim and distant past, while I was a spotty, greasy, sweaty teenager studying for my GCSE exams, a friend of mine found that I was pretty much just going nuts and like on the verge of a nervous breakdown, trying to cram all this information into my head that I've promptly found I use very little of in my subsequent life. He said, "You've got to step outside of reality for at least a few hours. So come with me to this place above a local bar, and I'll introduce you to this thing called Vampire the Masquerade." And it was a live action game.
Wow.
And yeah, after a few games of investigating lots of weird shenanigans that were going on, one of the other players came up to me and said, if that's your play style, you like investigating, you like the more occultish type plots, there's a game I think you'll really like. And he lent me his copy of the 5.6 rulebook, the old blue hardback.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and said have a look through that. And of course, I read the intro story, the Call of Cthulhu in the core book. Went out and brought at the time they had the Grafton or the HarperCollins by that point imprint of the 3 paperback collections,
yeah.
along with their wonderfully lurid and completely unrepresentative covers.
I love those covers. There's just something about them. They're tremendous.
Great artwork, but virtually nothing to do with the stories.
I think my favourite was the one for the new Tales of the Cthulhu mythos, the Ramsey Campbell edited one.
Oh yeah.
There's a woman, very scantily clad woman, standing in a doorway going, while there's a big pink monster that looks more like the Pinky Demon from Doom than anything that's in Lovecraft.
Yeah, that's the one with the Stephen King story, Crouch End.
Oh,
Crouch End, it is, yeah. That's the one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I started with those, reading through them, trying to do them in chronological order. So starting with the likes of Dagon onwards, and as I'm working my way through these earlier tales, thinking, oh, these are pretty good. And after GCSE, I went in to do English language rather, as one of my A levels. And I then promptly got the chance to subject Lovecraft to the rest of my classmates when we were asked to find an author who'd written a short story that you like, and that you can then present it to them, what kind of things they do, what you like about their use of language, and so on and so forth. And yeah, I found that most of the rest of the class hated him, and I loved him. So hey.
Yeah. I suppose it's I don't know if it's an acquired taste. I mean, Lovecraft has a certain reputation for being very, well, I suppose archaic would be the one word, wouldn't it? But
I wouldn't exactly call the whole lot of my classmates cultured, though. So I don't think it was ever going to go down well with them, because it wasn't anything that was action orientated or anything pop and in vogue.
Yeah.
Though, interestingly enough, of course, Lovecraft's influence, which I'm sure we'll talk about, is now spread so wide that I can't imagine there's many people who it doesn't touch, if I can put it in that way, in some sense or other.
I'd be surprised.
Yeah, very true.
So, Vampire the Masquerade live action, that's quite an introduction to gaming. I think, Tim, let's say you started on it pretty much in game.
It is, yes, in pretty much exactly the same way, in an upstairs room above a pub, in a function room that some guys hired out like once every fortnight or something, and my mate dragged me along. It's like, you're a goth. It's just like, yeah, I am. Okay, come along to this. All right, and yeah, so there we go.
Yeah, same. Our games are like every 3 weeks when we started, so it was above the. I think they've been turned into apartments now. It's a long time since I've been there. The old Queen Vic pub in Wolverton, on the north side of Milton Keynes, so not too far away from where we are now.
And how did you find that? As well, first of all, I suppose there's a game system to learn, but then also the actual physical side of LARPing. I mean, I played Masquerade as a game, but not as a LARP. I'm guessing a lot of it is frilly shirts and a bit of flouncing and hissing, isn't it? Would that be fair?
It was for me anyway. Yeah. Because I was already in the frilly shirt, so I was fine. In fact, I turned up in costume on my first day, flounced in,
That was purely by accident. Yeah, no, as a rule system, it's not too bad. It's fairly simple, but it's a LARP, so the mechanics are fairly straightforward. There's very little to keep track of. Your resolution mechanic by the old laws of the night book is rocks is paper, that wonderfully complex mechanism that it is.
Nice.
And yeah, you spend points off your sheet to either to retest or to fuel certain powers that you use. But yeah, probably the actual physical side of it was a little bit more taxing because at the time I had a body that could very much be described as the body of a god. Shame it's Ugolinak, but it was still the body of a god.
I have the body of a 19-year-old man. But I won't tell anyone where it's hidden. So.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
It's like having the heart of a small kid on my desk in a jar. Yeah.
Yes.
Did you have an interest before that in vampire literature? In Dracula is the obvious one. The Interview with the Vampire. I think that's what brought most of us into Masquerade, wasn't it? Anne Rice.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Yeah, but bizarrely, no. I mean, I'd been very much a fan of horror, so I'd been devouring the likes of Stephen King, James Herbert, Clive Barker up until that point. But no, vampire stories have always been kind of the odd one out for me. Maybe like the classics like vampires, werewolves, etc. They never held that much appeal to me in fiction. I remember I went out on a night out with a few of the other developers because wind forward a few years, about 20 odd years or so, and I got to work on Vampire the Masquerade 20th anniversary edition. I worked on 4 books for them.
Oh, nice.
And there was a group of us that met up in London from the development team, and the question came up, what is your favourite vampire novel? And I had to really think. God, I hadn't read that many, but also what I had read, there was a whole lot that I wasn't massively fond of. But I settled on I Am Legend, the Richard Matheson novel.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I got quite a lot of. Oh, nice choice. And there's me secretly wiping my brow, going, "Phew, I would dodge that one then."
Well, Dracula would be so obvious, wouldn't it? I guess even Interview with the Vampire would have been. Yeah, I always liked it. Was Fever Dream. I think it's George R.R. Martin.
Yes, the one on the riverboat.
Yeah, that was a nice setting. That was an interesting story, I thought.
Before he started writing books you could build houses with.
Yes.
And writing about, was it the tax system of wherever it is,
and not knowing how to finish them.
Oh,
sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you're listening in the future, about 20 years from now, if he's still around and hasn't put out the 5th book.
Yeah,
I think I've read the first 2 and then gave up after that with those.
Couldn't get into it. I just couldn't get. I don't get on with that kind of anything that I have to keep going to reference pages to know who they're talking about. I'm checked out after a chapter, you know.
I had that experience recently. I've been trying to, also for RPG related work, not working on the RPG, but just playing it. I've been reading Frank Herbert's Dune books.
Oh yeah.
And I've got to, or rather, completed Heretics of Dune, the 5th book in the cycle. But that had me going to the Wikipedia page to look up. So who the hell is this character? Because there's such a huge cast in that book. It was really hard to keep track of who's who.
Yeah.
My wife's a big fan. I finally read her edition. She's got one of the first versions, I think. Only a couple of years back, really, and I did struggle. And I mean, I've read the Silmarillion, you know.
You can get through that.
I wouldn't say I enjoyed it, but I plowed through.
Could you make head nor tail of it? That's the question.
Well, you have to approach a Silmarillion as like a history book, really, rather than a novel.
Yeah, because I read it and I still couldn't tell you what the hell's going on now. I've tried it like 3 times. I don't think I've got all the way through it.
But I just wonder, even going back to some of those vampire and werewolf films, I think for me, perhaps they work better as movies rather than books.
Yeah, I think Hammer's spin on them really was, I think, the best of all of them. I'm not a fan of the Universal monster films. Again, there's just something that I don't know, just doesn't flick a switch in me, doesn't interest me that much. But no, when it came to horror, to Hammer rather, maybe it's the more lurid depictions on screen that got me a bit more. Just the atmosphere that they built around those films was just, yeah, that was definitely more my vibe.
Yeah, I'd go along with you on that.
Incredible sets and colours. That's always what got me with those real vivid purples. Sumptuous. That's the word. Which I was so pleased to see they carried it off in Carry On Screaming as well.
Oh, absolute classic. Yeah.
Frying tonight.
So then we go from Masquerade to Call of Cthulhu. How did you find that at first? Was it everything you expected, or I always think in some ways it's nicer coming into Call of Cthulhu not knowing too much about stuff. Then you get that real sensation of your character learning horrible things.
Oh, definitely, yeah. The hardest thing for me was actually finding a group. 'Cause for a long time, I'd read the rule book and went, "This is amazing. I want people to play it with me," and couldn't for love nor money find anyone that had either played it or was willing to play it outside of the games I was playing at the time, and had to wait the best part of easily 5 or 6 years
Wow.
until I
Really?
got introduced to the Milton Keynes role playing group, and then turned up there. And I believe it was Paul Fricker that ran uh, my first Call of Cthulhu game, which was Camp Sunny, that the scenario done by Kiri Birch. And yeah, I thought, hey, I got dragged away into a lake to end up being breeding fodder for the deep ones, and hey, that was a great introduction for me.
Well, that's one introduction to the mythos.
I was going to say, don't shout that too loud in the Gilman House Hotel. They'll be beating the door down.
Hey, it's okay, guys. You've already got me once. I don't mind.
You don't come here for the talking, do you? So from playing, I presume that you then go to GMing, and from then into writing scenarios and lots of other things as well.
Yeah,
There's one specifically I want to talk about in a bit. But how was that transition between those things?
yeah. It was more by luck than judgment. From the MKRPG group, that's how I met the likes of Scott Dord and Paul Fricker. And Scott introduced me to the wider convention scene, and to say that there were these grand events that were held around the UK that you basically like rented a chalet and then you'd spend a week down there gaming solidly. And he prompted me to go down to, he says, racking his brain. It was Conception at the time, which was it's now been replaced with Contingency, and it's moved up to Hunstanton. But it was down on the south coast. But I went along to that and tried to put my name on the sign-up sheets to think, oh, I'm going to play as many Call of Cthulhu games as I possibly can. And promptly beaten to the punch every single time because it being first come, first served. And I was always just not around at the right time when the sheets went up. So for the first time I went there, I didn't really end up doing much. So it was a bit of a bust. But going forward a few months, thinking I've got to do something to kind of to occupy my time there. And if I can't play anything, I might as well run something.
Right.
And so after dipping my toe in at the local club, say offering like one-shot scenarios or shorts, like 8-week block campaigns that we used to do, I then decide, well, in a convention scene, it's a bit different. I'll offer my stuff at the local convention, so Concrete Cow, which we hold every 6 months.
Yeah.
So either in March and September, and I'll offer something there and see what happens. And I offered at the time, it was a Call of Cthulhu game, so a Delta Green game, because Delta Green was part of Call of Cthulhu way back in that ancient time. And we had guests of honor that turned up to the event. So there'd be different people that turned up for if each iteration of the con that we put on in the year. And that particular event, we had Graham Walmsley and Simon Rogers, so both connected with Pelgrane Press, turned up at the time.
Ah.
And to my kind of horror, when I'm offering my game in the afternoon slot, both of them signed up to play that.
Oh, no pressure.
I think, okay, that's got a lovely bit of pressure to put on the poor guy. And I run this with some fairly detailed pre-gens, but then by the end of the scenario, I had a whole lot of players backstabbing each other, trying to race to the finish line with their sanity intact. And Simon stood up and said, well, if this was written for one of my games, like the Easter Terrorists or any of the other Gumshoe games that he put out at the time, I'd offer to take it off your hands here and now and publish it for you.
Wow.
And so I went, oh, wow, I must be doing something right. Do you want to come back in a year's time for the next event, and I'll have an Easter Terrorist scenario written up for you? And he came back. He played the scenario put together, and that's how I got my first RPG scenario in print.
Oh, nice. That's
brilliant.
excellent. Yeah.
Brilliant.
So sometimes it just happens, doesn't it? By complete chance, you're just at the right place, right time. It's, there's no rhyme or reason to it sometimes. It's just the right story at the right time.
Yeah, pure dumb luck, which is how I've fallen into a few things.
It's the best type of luck. I think sometimes when you go not looking for something, you stand more of a chance of finding it, to get a bit esoteric, perhaps. That and sacrificing regularly to Dagon helps, of course. I mean,
Yes.
boosts your luck roll.
We don't talk too loud about that. The authorities tend to get a bit of a dim view on leaving mess around. Yeah.
So there's a couple of things I think with Call of Cthulhu in particular. One, I don't know if it's a problem or an issue. It's this idea, if you take unnameable, indescribable terror and say it's got 60 hit points and all the rest of it. So, which in a lot of respects you have to do if you're putting it in game form, right? I wonder what your thoughts were on that, what your approach would be to that.
Yeah, I very much like the route that Mike and the team took when they did the revised Malus Monstrorum, that they have almost like a limited character sheet, so specifically for that kind of reason, so that you don't have this whole barrage of stats. Like, you don't worry about hit points in many cases because you can't kill a god. That's silly. So yeah, I very much lean towards that. They become almost a feature of the environment rather than it being an antagonist that you can stand up against.
Right, yeah.
So yeah, it's part of the setting or the part of the landscape rather than something that, say, a moustache twirling villain that is your job as the PCs to banish at the end of a scenario.
And there's something there as well. Actually, I picked it up because you were talking in the recent episode of Good Friends, the Jackson Elias, about villains. And we were riffing on this last episode about you can have just a nasty evil villain, but the best ones are the ones you almost perhaps maybe he's got a point. Perhaps I can see why he's doing that.
Yeah.
Oh hell yeah! Or good people that think they're doing great things for a good reason and then realise, oh boy, I got something very wrong, didn't I?
Yeah. Well, I think that they're their best villains. Basically, that whole riff started because I was moaning about modern films not having believable villains anymore. Because I mean, there was always a logic behind it, not just I'm evil. That seems to have been lost somewhere along the way, I think. So to bring that into gaming makes a hell of a lot of sense.
Yeah, we want more Ozymandias characters, not from the
Yeah.
film because they got rid of my squid, damn it, at the end of But yeah, characters that you can see where they're coming from.
Yeah.
So is that something in your mind when you sit down and write a scenario? Do you have a sort of regular process for that, or is it just a case of you might see or hear something and think, oh, that's a good kernel for something?
Yeah, I mean, my scenario inspiration comes from all over the place. So I don't normally have like a process of if I sit down and think, okay, got to come up with a scenario now, because then all I'll just watch is the tumbleweeds rolling by as I'm waiting for that idea to come along.
Yeah.
But it's just occasionally I'll get hit with this idea out of completely left field. Either it be, for instance, some examples of where I've picked up scenario inspiration in random places: going to a local bakery, watching rats run around in our back garden, hearing our neighbour being two doors being their kids being traumatized by rats killing their chickens, finding of all things, finding a locked safe underneath our stairs, which I still haven't opened after 8 years.
Nice.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. Although I hate to think what's in there, especially with the carpet that was completely soddened of cat pee that was on top of it.
Schrodinger's safe.
Yeah. Yeah, as long as we can keep the smell in there, it'll be fine. But yeah, it just stuff comes out of left field for me quite often, or it's something that I've read or seen, maybe an individual, almost like a still shot from a film that I think, hang on, if this was in a different context, and I tend to find myself extrapolating those moments more as time goes on, and then they weave themselves into that kernel.
Mm-hmm.
It strikes me as it's a very similar process to writing a short story or a long story, come to that, But I guess you have the added pressure or difficulty if you have to present that in a manner that people can move through it in a certain way without it being too obvious as well. I suppose, writing a whodunit must be a similar thing, but with a nastier ending.
It's also a whodunit with multiple endings, because one of the things I find very unsatisfying as a player is if I sit down and play through a scenario that I think, okay, there was only ever one way this was going to go. I might as well just be sitting watching this as a film because I've got no real agency to change this story or craft an ending that's our ending. It's always going to have been this event is going to be followed by this, which is then going to lead to this, then going to lead to this, and we're going to have this scripted ending. I find that very dull. So for a lot of the games that I tend to, or scenarios that I put together now, I try to be more sandboxy or have multiple resolution points so that if a player approaches something, they're not confined by, well, you've got to get to this one single endpoint. There is just the one door that leads out of here. That they have the opportunity to craft their own ending. Because I think that that's the difference between a game and a story for me, is you've got to have that player engagement and that player's ability to be able to shape things.
And I suppose that's a very different approach. I mean, the first RPG I played was, well, D&D, Tunnels and Trolls, all that kind of stuff, which was basically a collection of rooms with a collection of monsters. Kill them, take the gold. Things have developed, and I think for me, Call of Cthulhu and then Masquerade have been a progression.
Yeah.
But have you seen that in other areas of role playing as well? There's a time and a place for a dungeon smash, but it's not the only way to play, is it?
Yeah, I think things have become a lot more loose, is probably one way of putting it. That rather than being those rigid structures that you've had previously, that they have tended to embrace that more open play style, like the ethos behind thinking of Powered by the Apocalypse games and Apocalypse World, that it's play to find out, that you don't necessarily know all these details are set in stone before the game starts, that you are crafting this story as you go along, and very much the mechanics are built to help reinforce that, because there's so many, thinking of the Powered by the Apocalypse games, where you've got the success or success but and outright failure, but something still interesting happens, that it is very difficult to write scenarios using that particular rule set because there's so many different ways that they can go. So you have to write specific situations and be quite sandboxy with them.
Yeah.
So you can provide guidance of, well, you're starting here, but point B might be a long way over there, or it might be a few degrees off in that angle, or a few degrees off in a different angle, or it might be a complete 180. It's very dependent on how those dice treat you. And knowing me in a previous life, I must have committed some cardinal sin to get the polyhedral gods very firmly against me. That I have to plan for all these weird contingencies because I know they happen. They happen to me.
There's now so unpredictable as RPG is.
I think one of the joys of on the outside looking in, when you've got a room full of people playing games, like at the Innsmouth Literary Festival, so you've got like 2 or 3 tables of people playing it, is that moment when you're walking through it and you just hear, oh, for fuck's sake. It's just like, I'm going to hang around and see what's happening.
Someone got 00 again. Oh, great.
Yeah, exactly.
You manage to pull the pin out from the grenade, then you drop it down your shirt.
Or you throw the pin and keep hold of that lovely grenade.
Oh, you mentioned Concrete Cow earlier. I got to that in September, and I was lucky enough to join in a session of Mothership.
Ah, yeah.
Which I've heard so much about, and I'm actually planning on starting up a campaign next year in that. So I liked it so much. And it was interesting. I won't say what the scenario was, but basically we solved the problem of a spaceship full of monsters by hacking into the life support system of the ship and switching it off.
Nice and easy.
It turned from a kind of fight through the spaceship into, oh, they're all dead now. Let's go in and loot the place. I think the game master was okay with it.
Thinking outside of the box. That's what you got to do, isn't it?
A friend of mine over at Into the Darkness, the group that meet on YouTube, because we've got members of the club are all over the place. One of their GMs ran Mothership for me a couple of times. Morgan, his name is, who's also written for Call of Cthulhu through Golden Goblin Press now. Yeah, he ran a few different one-shot Mothership scenarios for us, which I understand are quite different from the kind of the tone of the published scenarios, because his scenarios leave you kind of broken, depressed, and feeling quite miserable. But they're the best kind of scenarios, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
But yeah, really dark, gritty, kind of depressing sci-fi. And I loved it so much, I went out just as the Kickstarter was finished. I went, here, have my money. I'll have all of your stuff now, please. And yeah, ordered everything they had on offer.
Yeah, I'm just dipping into it now, and I mean the great thing is you can get these like pamphlet scenarios. There's two sides of A4, uh, and the design of it and the way they do that is very interesting. I think it's minimal information in a way, but enough to get you through. You know.
Kind of Mort Borg in a similar kind of aspect. There's some quite nice, again, pamphlet-sized scenarios that they've put out, helped by the fact that you've got the third-party license agreement, which is pretty much, yeah, you're not affiliated with the main publisher, so go fill your boots.
Yeah.
And they don't mind. They encourage third-party content.
Nice.
I mean, that reminds me of, in a sense, of the fact that Lovecraft has always been public domain, as far as I know, anyway, and that has encouraged this slurry, to which I feel we have contributed a little dribble
Oh yeah.
of
Yeah.
Lovecraft in anthologies, adaptations, sequels, prequels, the whole lot.
We've got a lot to thank August Derleth for. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. The only thing you got to be careful is that you call it the Arkham Sanatorium and not the Asylum.
Of
That's
course.
the only thing you got to be careful about.
Otherwise, someone and their lawyer team that's speaking a very deep voice come knocking on your door, going, "We've got some questions for you."
Yeah.
Where did he come from? So I know you've played a lot of games. We're just going to sort of, it's like a a sort of quiz round. We're just going to chuck some game system names at you.
Fingers crossed, I played them. Yeah.
So Mothership we've spoken about, and Call of Cthulhu, which I want to come back to, by the way. But one that I thought sounded really interesting was 10 Candles.
Oh yeah. Again, through the Into the Darkness group, we had a little retreat where we went away to Salt Lake City, of all places, to rent an Airbnb. Must be a couple of years ago now, where we all turned up and then spent the best part of 5-6 days just playing through games, pretty much not solidly, but at least we got through about 2 or 3 games a day. And 10 Candles was the evening game, and that was pretty much the one that consistently came up that everyone wanted to play. So I thought, oh, I haven't played it before. Let's give it a try. I know vaguely of it that we're going to end up feeding our inner pyromaniac because we're going to be burning our character sheets and all these index cards as we go through the session. And yeah, leaning into the fact that, like Morgan's love of grim sci-fi, everyone loves a grim story where you're all gonna die. And yeah, it's just the fun and interesting means by which you can get to the end of your story and drag everyone else down with you,
Nice.
and get some of those kind of "you betrayed me" kind of shaking fist moments. Yeah, good, great fun.
You're talking about just a quick aside here. Has anybody actually made anything based on the works of Thomas Ligotti? Because if you're talking about these depressing, sort of hopeless scenarios, that's got to be what you're striving for, right? Somebody must have made one somewhere.
If they have, I haven't come across it, but yeah, it's. I wouldn't be surprised if they have. But again, maybe run into licensing issues if it's direct inspiration from his story and then starts name checking various items.
Possibly.
But yeah, I can't think of anything that's kind of had the Ligotti stamp on it. There's themes in individual scenarios I can think of, but yeah, as a game itself, I'm yet to see one. So if there's anyone out there that knows it, please send it my way.
Yeah, absolutely.
In terms of scenarios, the closest thing I've seen was I think it was a Mark Morrison scenario in one of the old issues of Dagon, which was set in a very sort of Venice type city or Malnéon. And I think it was a Ligotti special issue, and that was sort of why it was in there.
Okay.
And yeah, it was always a very interesting scenario. I don't know if it's available anywhere else or it was ever printed anywhere else, but it certainly has. It's like a mix of Clark Ashton Smith, the Malneon thing, and just, oh my God.
You're adding stuff to my eBay watch list now, as I'm going to have to go and find the Ligotti issue of Dagon. Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember the name of the scenario off the top of my head, but yeah, it was a very good one. But I mean, there's RPG system out now for sort of King in Yellow, I believe. Is that Pelgrane?
Oh, the Yellow King, yes, which
Yeah.
is a Gumshoe one-on-one game that, yeah, Pelgrane did a Kickstarter for it a few years back. So I went again crazy money in on that and got the kind of bespoke signed, handwritten or hand scrawled across various different pages with all the added notes that Robin put in there. Yeah, that was. I like some of the settings more than others. Like I think the Bellapox setting, like the initial one of the run of, I think it's 4 of the settings that's in there. That's the one that appeals to me the most because I think just the Bellapox is a wonderful setting for games. One of my published Call of Cthulhu scenarios is set there, for example, and it's definitely a setting I want to return to more. I've got a book that's been sat on my shelf for a depressingly long period of time called Occult Paris that I want to get round to reading, which is again
Nice.
delving into the figures that were very much the leading artists in within the movement at the time, and their kind of spin of how they brought the occult into their works. So Peladon, for example, being the biggest one, the one that I latched onto initially, but there's a whole raft of others that were working alongside him, and yeah, it's definitely on my list of stuff I want to go back to, but I need to find either a magic wand or a time machine to be able to squeeze more hours into a day.
Yes, I know the feeling.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah.
I think YouTube is partly to blame for that as well. Especially once you start doing research. 4 hours later, I've researched several cat videos and all the rest of it. But I found out how many Roman soldiers were in a legion. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And the true meaning of the term decimate. Yeah.
Oh
yeah.
yes, that now. Well, you talk about grim, eh? There was a grim
Mhm.
practice. Oh. Another game I've actually been involved in a campaign just recently. That's just coming to an end. Is Cult with a K, the Swedish game, run in our case, funnily enough, by a Swedish GM. So
Very nice. Is it Black Madonna you're playing by chance?
it is, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, we played that again a good few years ago. So yeah, about 3 years ago I think we played that 'cause it coincided with a stay I had in hospital, which I still feel guilty about. But the whole group paused, waiting for me to come out so I could then rejoin the group.
Oh, nice. That's
So,
nice.
yeah, I love the opening. I think the opening part of that when you're still in Berlin, that's the favourite bit of that campaign for me.
Yeah.
It's a good campaign all the way through, but I think that's the real highlight is the opening chapter.
I think so. I think the nice thing for us was a sort of Lovecraft enthusiast in this game, as we kept saying several times, I haven't got a fucking clue what is going on here, which was really nice. And you gradually uncover this hidden reality or whatever you want to call it. So yeah, very very strong start.
Yeah, that definitely has that whole game, even just beyond Black Madonna, benefits from the players knowing nothing about the universe. So you don't know that anything beyond this world. It's, as far as you're concerned, it's the normal modern day world. There's nothing odd happening here. Maybe a bit like the elevator pitch for World of Darkness games. Maybe the shadows are a bit darker. Maybe things are a little bit more grimy, a little bit more miserable. But then stuff starts to happen to you, and then you start to realise, oh, hang on a minute, things are quite different, aren't they? But yeah, that's a brilliant game. I love Cult. Just the wide universe that there is out there waiting for you to discover is one of the richest, darkest, uh, absolutely horrific pieces of gaming material I've ever come across in terms of a setting.
Yeah, yeah.
And then you got the rule set, which is equally as horrific when you look at editions 1 through 3, because boy, the old mechanics were a nightmare.
Right.
I'm very glad. I hope you're playing it with Divinity Lost, so using the Powered by the Apocalypse rules.
Yes, it's it's a newer version. Yeah, I did have the rule book back in the day, but never played it. Yeah, well, you know exactly what it's like. You think, oh, this looks like an interesting system. Who wants to play this? No one. Okay.
Yeah.
I did run for my sins when it was still Conception down on the south coast. I did run a one shot using the Second Ed rules, and then realized, yep, this is an experience that I love the universe, but I am never running it again with these mechanics at all, because everything grinds to a halt when you get into anything beyond a regular check.
Right.
To paraphrase and give you a short, condensed slice of the horror that you're looking at, you roll your d20. So already a warning sign. It's a d20 that you're rolling, not a proper dice that's got 10 sides. You roll that. You compare the number you've rolled against your skill on your sheet. That gives you a number, Well, you plug that into the first table to then work out compared to your adversary stats or the difficulty of what you're rolling against to generate another number. You then plug that into another table that then gives you a particular type of damage that you're rolling, and you proceed down about 3 of these different routes through three separate tables, and that's just your first action in one turn.
Ooh.
Depending what your stats are, you could have many actions you take place in a turn, and they're divided up into phases. So you've got your turn is divided up into another table, and at that point you just turn off and realise, why am I not using BRP?
Yeah.
What did they base the gaming system on? Campaign for North Africa? With all the tables and all that. Did you have to check the velocity of the wind before you run?
It wasn't quite Millennium's End or Living Steel. It wasn't quite that bad.
God.
Mm.
Right.
But you could do everything from lethal wounds down to, fatal wounds or scratches. So yeah, there were lots of granular bits and pieces to that rule set, and it was not very fun. It kind of made a sense on paper, but in practical sense at the game table, it was just far too clunky. So, no, the Divinity Lost rule set is by far the best of all that they've done so far, because it's just a nice one roll done, and again allows that story to develop.
This is what I'm liking with it, is you roll, you might get a partial success part, whatever, and then Ove, the GM, will say from there, that really sets the whole next 5 minutes or whatever on that one dice roll. Funny enough, because at the same time I'm also involved in a Rollmaster fantasy campaign, and I don't know if you ever played Rollmaster, but there,
Death by table.
if you the GM says, okay, you're all going to sleep out in the woods, what time do you want to wake up? It's like 8 o'clock. You have to roll a dice to see if you can wake up. And then we've got the combat pretty quick now, but it is that roll hit, roll for this, roll for that. You've inflicted a cut to the opponent's calf muscle, and they now entertaining to play, but I couldn't run it. I don't think I could run it.
No, that's a bit more granular than I want in a game. Bit too many steps and too much detail in a rule set. I like my stuff nice and quick and simple, and horror.
What's the appeal? This is something we ask everyone, still trying to figure out our own answer, perhaps. The world's a horrible place. We don't need to look very far to see that. What do you do for your hobby? I read horror. I watch horror. I play horror. What's the appeal?
It's an elevation in tone. It's a more bright and happy place compared to my day job.
There you go.
There's Lagotti.
There he is. Yeah. He's channeling him now.
But the thing besides that, the thing that really draws me to horror above any other genre is what I refer to as the what the fuck moment. That there's no other genre where you can have the rug pulled out from you in such a way that is completely in keeping with the narrative and not tend to ruin a story. That there is no set hard and fast rules. It's whatever you want as the author goes. And sometimes you can be have a very atmospheric approach to that. Thinking of someone like maybe M.R. James, for example.
Yep.
Or you could be right at the extreme other end of horror and go into splatterpunk territory. And I fully admit I've got a bit of a soft spot for Richard Lehman. And then you can have characters running around doing the kind of horrendous acts that his characters have. But yeah, again, anything goes, and it's just that moment where you have no idea what's going to happen from one moment to the next because there are no rules, and that's what I love about it.
Yeah.
I think I find a particular odd comfort as well, especially going back to those Hammer films. It's I don't know, it's a very comfortable universe. I find, even though you've got these creatures around, I suppose in that sense they're generally defeated, aren't they, by the powers of good. The good sort of prevails.
Up to a point.
Not in anything I've written.
Well, yeah, I mean, but then that's the contrast with the Lovecraft and all the other stuff, right? But again, that has its own odd comfort to me as well, I think.
Oh yeah.
So my favourite of the Hammer horror films, and even then it's an adaptation of a BBC property, like they did a few of the turning BBC series into films, is Quatermass in the Pit.
Yes.
Which I think it's up there as one of my favourite of all time films anyway. But the end of that, yeah, it's just the immediate problem has been solved, but unless you're going to rewrite the human genetic code, that problem is still there, and there's potentially other ships that crashed around that could kickstart this mess all off again. So it's just a temporary solution, and then having to deal with the consequences of a problem that you can't necessarily or inherently solve. And I like those kind of moral dilemmas and quandaries that there is no neat and tidy answer at the end of that film.
Mm. Yeah, it's an absolutely brilliant piece of work. I've been a big fan of all the Quatermass stuff. For some reason, the other day, I randomly got that rhyme from you remember the late 70s, early 80s
Oh,
serial?
the one from, yeah, the fourth one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Huffety puffety ringstone round. For some reason, that just popped in my head the other day. That is just quite disturbing. But it's one of those, and I was like, I'm gonna have to track that down now. Well, I've actually got the novelization, so I ended up reading that instead.
Well, if you do go follow it, if you do see a stone circle, just don't go in it. You'll be safe then.
Indeed. Yeah, 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 yeah.
That's generally good advice anyway. I mean, there's plenty of circles in Milton Keynes, right?
Yeah, there's. I used to go walking on my lunchtime break around Northwood Lake, and they've got the medicine wheel there. So yeah, that's one that was in kind of spitting distance of my workplace.
And isn't this, again, we're back in Lovecraft territory, aren't we? Because obviously he moved away from that gothic good versus evil thing into the cosmic. And, well, I can't think of any Lovecraft story that doesn't have that similar ending. Dunwich Horror, yeah, you've got rid of that for now.
Until he turns up and has another kid with someone else. Yeah.
Exactly. One of my favorite memes I've ever seen is a picture of Lovecraft looking slightly amused, like he's just about to burst into laughter. It says, "And they all lived happily ever after." Only kidding. They're all dead or insane.
The Lovecraft meme, or rather, I think it's more of a cartoon that kind of sticks in my mind, an animation, is the ones where the little kids are playing Tea Party in their at home, and they whip out the plush Cthulhu that they then have. Oh, Mr. Cthulhu, would you like some tea? And he's just kind of sat there, kind of glassy-eyed, looking at these kids playing, kind of putting teacups in front of him and dressing him up. And then it cuts to the dark and stormy night in the graveyard. The camera pans down, and there's Lovecraft's skeleton just headbutting the interior of his coffin.
Yeah, you have to wonder what he'd make of it. I mean, we always say that Lovecraft has more humour in it than he's often given credit for. He was having a lot of fun with it. But would a Cthulhu plushie be a step too far, do you think? I don't know.
I don't know. If it is, I hazard to think what he would tell if he walked into the room I'm in right now.
Yeah, I think he'd just be happy that he's still out there, and well, probably more popular than he was back then, to be honest.
Oh, there's this old. I say old. It's probably about 20 years old now. I think it was not a TV pilot, but a made-for-TV movie or short film that was released. Out of Mind, I think it's called. It's in the H.P. Lovecraft collection DVD.
I know it. Yeah.
There you go. We have Christopher, I think it's Heidendal. I can never pronounce his surname. He's one of these guys that turns up as a character actor in loads of things. He plays Lovecraft, and one of the best interpretations of Lovecraft on screen. Sorry, Jeffrey Combs, but someone beat it. But he meets a dreamer, and there's just that one kind of passing line of, "Oh, my face is on your T-shirt. One of us must be dreaming."
Yeah.
Oh no, the other thing I wanted to ask, Call of Cthulhu. So you worked on a book, or you put out a book with Mike Mason with the wonderful title of The Grand Grimoire of Cthulhu Mythos Magic. Over 550 spells of dire consequences, secrets, and unfathomable power.
Ooh.
Oh.
So my first question is, when you were researching that, were there any unfortunate or humorous accidents?
Only to my bank account. That was actually the project that set me down a route where, to use an Unknown Armies reference, would give me a major bibliomancy charge. I'd always been a bit of a collector up until that point, but never much of a completionist. That it would be very much, I've got my eye on these particular things that I'd really like, or wouldn't it be nice if I had this complete set of stuff? That just set me on a path of, no, I've got to have every book. I need all these books to complete this project I've been given, because I need to be able to read these things and reference them. half of them at that point hadn't got PDFs when I was trawling through them. So I scoured the internet for months, buying up every single book so that I had everything in the Chaosium catalogue, um, whether it would be an old edition or a newer edition, because sometimes there would be stuff that would be included in one edition that wasn't then followed up in the next one, or vice versa, and then produced a spreadsheet that had every spell in every rulebook or in every supplement for the game. And that's why there's only 4 books I'm missing now to complete the whole Chaosium set. But those individual books, whenever they do turn up on the market, the open market, I'd be looking at least 5 to 10 grand per book, because there
Wow.
are just so few copies of them.
Right.
2 of them in particular, they were only given to licensees at 2 conventions in the US. So the 20th anniversary editions that were knowingly referred to as Gen Con 2002 or Farewell Milwaukee and Origins 2002, they say they were only given to other licensee publishers. So there's only, I think, 20 of one and maybe 10 of the other.
God.
And they're in private collections. They're generally going to be held by people, and even in their cold dead hands, they aren't going to let go of them.
Quite apt.
So yeah, they're so rare to find these days. It's really almost single to low double digits of these lovely tomes that I would love to have, but a collector can dream. But yeah, going through all those books and that collection I amassed, that was several months of just night after night plowing through each book, writing up meticulously the spell, the page reference, the broken down mechanics into how many magic points does it cost, how many sand does it cost, how many power does it cost, and by the end of it, when I'd submitted the whole spreadsheet to Mike, and then after he promptly took a chainsaw to large chunks of it, because they are not all the spells in Call of Cthulhu. There are others that didn't make it into the book.
It's more.
Because there's one book in particular I can think of where a large number of the spells didn't make it from the book into the Grand Grimoire, and that's Secrets of Japan. Because there are so many spells in that book, but they all refer to entities that only appear in that book.
Right.
So it's a very self-referential tome. There were a few others that got cut, and the one that I'd accidentally put into a scenario that was then cut from the core rulebook, attract fish.
Well, we're in the right place for that.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah, because that originally wasn't going to be in the core book, because it was one of the spells that when Mike and Paul were looking at developing it, thinking, who the hell is ever going to use this spell? This doesn't need to be in here. And then when we wrote up Nameless Horrors, I wrote a scenario where effectively it was using that spell that was the main reason why the, in air quotes, antagonist in that scenario became in the position that they were in. And then promptly had Mike and Paul kind of head in hands going, my God, he referenced the spell we took out, didn't he?
Nice.
And I always thought magic is a bit of a challenge in games. I mean, I found when I was doing the skirmish game, of course, there's spells in there. And I think the first test play, someone let off a fireball and did like 60 points of damage, just blew up. Perhaps I need to tone that down a bit. So, you know, it can be an extremely powerful thing. I guess in Cthulhu, you've got the sand cost and all that sort of attached, which mitigates that to some extent.
Yeah, there's some nice ones in there where it's you want to be able to one-shot kill a beastie. Yeah, that's fine, but it's more than likely going to end up one-shot killing you in the process. But yeah, magic is a nice little tool, and it's flexible enough where you can do pretty much again you can do whatever you want with it. There's no hard and fast set list rule for all the spells that exist within the mythos, and the spontaneous use of the Cthulhu mythos skill in the core rulebook allows you to have that degree of flexibility, which you can then potentially mold into a spell. You can kind of codify it and do it by rote later and turn it into something that maybe has slightly different or better costs as you've got a better grasp on it. But the mythos will take from you. It will always extract a cost.
It's always a price to pay.
Indeed.
It's like the tax man. He's always ready with his hand out.
Yeah, now there's a place where Fireball would come in useful. Not that we condone violence against government employees, anything. Having been one myself, not a tax man, I hasten to add, but
No comment.
Yes.
And I wanted just to go back to conventions as well, because I was clearing out some stuff a couple of weeks back and I found in my collection a program from Games Day 2, which was held in Chelsea Town Hall in London on the 12th of February 1977.
Blimey.
And I actually went along to that. I was I was 13 years old.
Nice.
And I've been into wargaming for a little bit, but then this D&D thing started coming out and whatever, And I don't remember too much about it, but I do remember it being quite busy. I think there were like 2 traders there, Games Workshop and someone else. And I got the list of the games played. It was quite interesting. Match Day, Diplomacy, Monopoly, and Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh boy, diplomacy, the ruiner of friendships.
Oh, yeah. Christmas throwing turkey legs at each other over the Monopoly board.
Yeah. That's a monopoly for family arguments. Those two together.
My wife loves Monopoly. She collects different versions of the Monopoly game, so we've got a few of them downstairs. But whenever we sit down with anyone that hasn't played with us for either before or for a long while, the first thing she does is just point at me and says, "Don't make deals with him." And it's like, what did I haven't even started playing the game yet. And she just says, "Don't listen to him. Don't trust him. Don't believe him." It's just...
Your reputation precedes you.
I work with money for part of my day job, and I know finance, and I can make you a good deal on stuff. And why should that be held against me?
Sounds like every Christmas or any family gathering with my other half family, there's 3 sisters, and they always get the board games out, and that's where I want to go and get full-on body armor out, because it's basically a blood sport in that house.
Oh yeah. I remember in our house, boards going up in the air, flying across the room. I mean, Monopoly is for people stashing notes under something.
Up the sleeves.
That's the East End bit, though.
Yeah, if it was up in my neck of the woods, it'd be in a biscuit tin under the bed.
But it just struck me looking back at that I think actually they had so many people there when they did the next one, they moved to a bigger venue. And I know you were at Dragon Meet just this last weekend,
yes.
which I went to last year at Hammersmith. Mm-hmm. That was absolutely rammed. I think this year it was the XL and it looked just as busy, if not busier.
Yeah, I mean, we hadn't been down to Dragon Meet since before COVID. And then after having caught COVID back in the back end of 22, we decided we're not going to go back to the Novotel, the Hammersmith Novotel, because there were already a lot of people in a very cramped environment then. It was maybe not triggering, that's a bit too exaggerating a term, but it was concerning enough that we thought the chance of us going down there and getting COVID are probably way too high for our liking.
Yeah.
And so we just decided we're going to wait until they find a bigger venue, because they're going to have to at some point. And yeah, they finally moved to the XL Centre, and it was wonderful. I mean, we had parking on site. It was expensive parking, but it was parking at the venue directly underneath. So not having to go out in the rain and then walk across a great big car park to get to the place. We ended up being pretty much by the elevator that took us up to the main door that was in the main hall that they were using in the XL Centre. There was other stuff to do as well. Like Tiff took us along to the Pompeii 3D virtual reality experience they had on the lower level as well. So right. You've got stuff to just break up the day. There was plenty of breakout space to sit down, and as I did after having set off at 4 in, sat down at about 10, closed my eyes, and the next thing I know, I've woken myself up snoring, and it's 10:30. It was a long day. Okay. And yeah, it was just so much nicer having room to move, that you weren't squeezing your way between aisles full of people, which is kind of one of the reasons why I haven't gone back to Gen Con, apart from the cost for so long now. Because again, that got to a point where you were having to wade and elbow your way through this sea of people that it just became unfun. I mean, I don't like large crowds at the best of times, and that was to the nth degree, where there's just no room to move or breathe. It just wasn't fun anymore. But yeah, this was the complete reverse. You had so much open space. It was completely accessible because Tiff uses a wheelchair when she's up and about for a long time. And yeah, it was a wonderful, nice change of pace also to go to a convention where I wasn't running anything. I was just along as a regular punter. So I'm not having to suddenly rush to run a game or suddenly find what table am I on? What seminar am I supposed to be at? What talk am I giving now? The only thing that I did that was even vaguely kind of work related, again in inverted commas, is that I got to sign a book at the Chaosium stand. And yeah, it was
Nice.
just nice. I was there at the right time when someone was buying a book and asking for signatures, and I just so happened to be right beside him. And went, oh, okay, yeah, my name's in that one too.
That's cool. That's cool. Yeah, so I went to Novotel last year, and I just found it like the same as you. Extreme. I don't like crowds, and if you wanted to get to a stall, you almost had to stand and wait for like 10 or 15 minutes just to edge your way in to look at something.
Yeah, and
Uh,
then knowing my luck, the thing you've been looking at is all sold out by the time you've got there. Yeah.
I mean, I get stressed out if I'm in the supermarket and there's some twat with their trolley
Oh,
taking up all that
yeah,
space. Okay.
yeah.
Oh, look, beans. Shall we have these beans or those beans? What about those? Oh, look, they've got some more beans. Get out of my
I,
way.
I know those trips. They only happen on days ending in Y.
Yes. Yeah. I suffer with trolley rage on a regular basis. In fact, I was growling at somebody this very afternoon.
Ooh,
Just like, get out of the way of the sodding onions.
they had it coming.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm. But it seems that I mean, the hobby in general, if we look at, well, from wargaming across to RPG and all the rest, it seems to be in a very healthy position at the moment and just is constantly expanding in all directions, it feels like.
Yeah, especially if you look at the like the crowds at the UK Games Expo that we went to back in July, then June, July time, I think it was. That yeah, they're similar. Maybe that's slightly skewed because you've got all gaming there. You've got board games, card games, everything is under the one roof. But yeah, as the hobby and the wider kind of the wider broad church of it is definitely growing.
Mm.
Um, Again, even that's getting to the point where okay, the NEC is getting a bit cramped. There's a whole lot of people here and not much room now.
I just wonder what the appeal is. Is it that as times get a bit tougher, people turn more to fantasy and genre? Is it now that I don't like using the word particularly, but nerd things? It's okay to be a nerd now. You know, Stranger Things on TV, The Witcher, Star Trek, all this kind of stuff. Like a combination of those, perhaps.
Yeah, perhaps, and I think maybe also maybe from a cynical view, uh, that a lot of mainstream entertainment doesn't really hold as much interest for me anymore.
Mm.
That I don't know if it's the writing quality for various shows or films has just deteriorated so much over the last maybe even 10 years
Yeah.
that people are looking for an outlet whereby they can stretch their own creative muscles and enjoy things that are to them fresher, newer, and more creative. Because yeah, I mean, I don't watch anywhere near as much as what I used to watch on TV now. Although I swear that's mainly because, again, someone has managed to take out all the hours in the day where I used to be able to do that and has just replaced them with more work for me.
Same.
But yeah, it's just there's not anywhere near as much interest in that type of entertainment anymore. I think that's filling the gap.
I think that's a very good observation, and I think that also speaks with video games because you've seen this shift where people have gone away from the big budget AAA games because it's all the same shit over and over and over again. The indie sphere in gaming has just boomed over the last decade or so. And some of these indie because these guys they've not got like shareholders saying you must do this, you must do that, you must do the other. You're getting some really innovative things, and people are gravitating to that. And I think that's where a lot of the interest in that sort of the weirder aspect of again to use the term nerd culture is coming from because there's so many like games that are set within the Lovecraft mythos and things inspired by it and things that it's like, oh well, this is a bit like the King in Yellow. So people then go off and go, oh well, there's also all this over here.
Yeah, but also helped with the fact that they're in the public domain, so there's no licensing and such. So
Exactly.
even from a purely commercial aspect, it's something you can tap into that has a pre-existing fan base and won't cost you anything to do so.
And again, that takes us back to our mothership, Morkborg, and all that kind of stuff, where these guys go, "Here's our system,
Yeah.
you know, write scenarios for it, do what you like." I think that's an important point you make there about when you come into it, you bring your own creativity as well. Even if you're a player, you're playing in the game, you're still participating in building this story and narrative.
Yeah, there's only one example I can think of in he suddenly thinks, the 25 years that I've been gaming now, where I can think of one player that has not engaged in a game.
Ah,
Um, Bizarrely, it was at the Student Nationals one year. So for listeners that aren't aware, it's a role-playing and other gaming style contest where you have teams that turn up from different UK universities that then compete against each other to either become like the best role player or the best board gamer, best card gamer, and so on, and accumulate points for your team, and then go on to like a scoreboard leader chart thing. And I was invited to run a scenario many years ago. Coincidentally, it was actually the same scenario that I ran for Simon and Graham at Concrete Cow, but it was I think a couple of years on from when I initially ran it for them. And because it was set up where you had characters that were at each other's throats, it was plenty of opportunity to role play from the start and really a very competitive type of aspect to the game.
yeah.
One player in that group, I could count how many times on one hand she opened her mouth the whole 6 hour game that we played, and thought,
Mm.
"What? Why the hell are you here? Did you get put into a role playing game when you actually meant to say board game or something?" No, there was just no willingness or no impetus or desire to engage. And the same person then in the next game that they played the next day, I heard another GM for their game complaining about the same thing, saying, "What the hell is this person doing here?" So well, it wasn't just me that put them off. That was at least one nice thing about it.
Bizarre, isn't it? That is bizarre. You do know what this is. You do know what you signed up for, isn't it?
Probably got drafted in. She probably wanted to be on the Ludo team and somebody dropped out or something.
Where's the board gone?
But it does happen. I mean, I'm running a fantasy campaign at the moment, or the second part of it, and we had one of the players joined in the first part, and he barely took part. I think he sent in 2 sets of orders over the thing. And when I did the second one, I said, "Well, I won't put him in." No, 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 please, no, I want to be in it this time. Da, 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 da. Of course, exactly the same things happened. Basically now I've got to run his army. Thanks.
Some players get very different things out of gaming. Like I've had quiet players at a table for sure, but then they're kind of some of them they're just biding their time, waiting for that moment for when they've had that great idea, and then they'll drop this grenade effectively into the middle of your story and go kind of the equivalent of winning move, checkmate. And yeah, it's great when they do that for me because they very much they seem to enjoy the stuff I'm running, and that's what I want. I want happy people at the table that enjoy what they're playing.
Yeah, yeah.
And if they get enjoyment from being that more quiet, more introverted method of engagement, then hey, if that's what works, knock yourself out.
So, do you have? I know this is something you talk about on the podcast, of course, and it's something I'm mulling over at the moment because I'm going to be setting up the campaign again next year. A set of quick guidelines, perhaps for being a GM or a keeper or a warden or whatever it is. I mean, it's quite a big subject.
Yeah. So the first one, don't plot out things too much because no plot that you have will survive contact with the enemy. I mean the players. That yeah, if you can have this wonderfully meticulated plot out there, all mapped down to the nth degree. The first scene, I guarantee you, players are going to go off and do their own thing. They're going to think of option Z rather than your A through J. Yeah, they're going to go off and do something entirely unexpected. And the other thing is just remember that it is a game, that it's there for everyone to have fun, and that includes you running the game as well. Don't be beholden thinking you're some kind of slave that only the players are there to have fun and it's your kind of job to cater to them. You're supposed to be enjoying this as well, that it's very much your game as much as it is theirs. And yeah, just be prepared to improvise. Don't hog the spotlight, so don't be giving long monologues. Be nice and concise, but yeah, let them really be the ones that are the center of the story. and react accordingly to what they're doing, and just be willing to be flexible and go with the flow.
And do you have any tips on horror games, particular creating atmosphere? I mean, it can be very difficult at times because you might not have any control over the environment or the room if you're at a convention or something. But are there quick little things you can do to help create that atmosphere?
The big one is know your players. So make sure that if you're going to have what you would consider to be fairly adult material, so in terms of like a film setting, whether it's stuff that's going to be maybe like a 12A going up through a 15 or even an 18 rating, know that everyone at the table is going to be happy with what you're going to put on presentation. If you're thinking of doing something, again, like pulling random stuff out of the air, something like Cujo or Stephen King does Jaws, that might upset folks like myself, where I really don't like animal cruelty in games.
Nice.
I would gladly murder 1,000 babies rather than lay a hand on a dog.
Now there's a
So-
quote.
We're gonna,
Yeah,
we're going to pull that out as the quote.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a problem that some people who have run my games have run into problems like that. Because I've got that lovely feather in my cap going back to Cult, where I heard one of the players, or one of the people who brought Screams and Whispers, that's a scenario collection that I contributed to with my first Cult scenario, Judgment. They offered to run it at Gen Con a few years back, and the Gen Con staff took one look at this game and went, hell no, you're not running this at our convention.
Wow.
Because it's a scenario that has a lot of very adult themes.
Yeah.
And it's no spoiler, the opening scene is all based around that a teenage girl has come back to her home late in the middle of the night. The mother's been up sick, worried, going, where the hell have you been? She confronts her thinking, oh, are you on drugs, or you've got high or something? And the kid blurts out, no, I've just come back from a backstreet abortion clinic. And then you start playing.
Ooh.
Wow.
And
right.
to do that in the States, where it's already a hot topic,
Yeah.
and in an open gaming environment where you could have someone playing Kobolds Ate My Baby, or Tunnels and Trolls, or anything else that's nice, cute and fluffy, one table across, they just put their foot down and said, hell no, you can't play this in an open environment. So they said, nope, banned.
Yeah.
And there's me as the author going, I'm chuffed, one of my games got banned at Gen Con.
It's like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
That's like being, the video nasty, isn't it? Everyone wants to see Evil Dead, and I spit on your grave.
So when I got singled out for a
Yeah.
content warning in an anthology, it was like, yes.
Nice.
Well, I hear Mr. Sargent is pulling up in his bus outside, so we'll draw things to a close. We, of course, get to leave. You, as a guest, get to stay here for the night and experience the delights of Innsmouth by night by yourself.
Don't cast summon fish.
Well, I thought it was summon frog. There's some very ribbit.
Oh, yeah.
The Batrachian version.
Indeed.
Either that, or someone's discussing lots of Reddit threads out there.
Reddit. Oh.
Reddit.
I told you there was going to be puns.
Yes, you did warn me. Yeah.
Of course, we have to finish with the obligatory question: favorite Lovecraft story and favorite Lovecraft or Lovecraftian adaptation.
Ooh, Lovecraft story, definitely Music of Eric Zahn. That's the big one for me.
Nice.
And I think the best Lovecraft adaptation has to go to Stuart Gordon for his entry into the first season of Masters of Horror with Dreams in the Witch House.
Yes.
Oh, I'm glad you said that, because a lot of people seem to overlook that, and I think that's absolutely bloody tremendous.
It's by far the best adaptation as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it knocks the Del Toro one way out of the park.
Oh, don't mention that.
That's the unspeakable around here. That, isn't
Yeah,
it?
yeah.
I mean, what an opportunity and what a disappointment. Yeah. And I suppose we should throw in favourite scenario as well of any system.
We'll stick with Call of Cthulhu for some unknown reason. I really love the Burning Stars. I think that is a phenomenal scenario, because again, going back to my love of what I find is that love of horror, there is an almighty what the fuck moment when you pull the rug out from the character from under the player's feet, and they just look at each other with this penny dropping, kind of hitting the ground, and just jaws will hit the ground a second later, going, "You what?" as you present this almighty big revelation on them, and they just suddenly realise, oh shit. And just that moment of rabbit in the headlights. I live for those moments as a GM.
Very satisfying, isn't it, when one of those things happens? Yeah, definitely. And what are you working on anything at the moment you can tell us about? Have you got anything coming up? We've not really spoken about the podcast at all as well. Good friends of Jackson Elias, which
this little thing we do.
Yeah, I've been going for a long time now.
Yeah, we had our 10-year anniversary relatively recently. Yes, that's flown by.
10 years, wow.
I still remember the days when we were in the shed watching the mold creep up the stall that we had the microphone positioned on. But yeah, we're still going strong there. We've got our sequence of kind of have I got news for you guests that come in every so often, and they do a couple of episodes with us, and then they go back into the pool, and then we might drag them back out again, kicking and screaming for another go round for next year. But yeah, the next thing really on my plate is getting the next issue of the Blasphemous Tome out at the time of recording, the end of the year, because that'll be going out to our backers in January. So anyone that's backing us with on the podcast Patreon by the end of the year, then we'll get a copy of the tome either sent to them electronically or as a print-on-demand copy at produced rates, so at cost basically. Or if you're up at a certain level, then you get a copy that we print in the UK, and then me and Scott both sign it, and then we send it by winged by Aki to wherever part of the world that you find yourself in.
Very nice. And that's a collection of articles and a scenario in every issue, I believe.
That's it. There's 2 scenarios coming up in the current issue, because we've got we're going back to doing 1 issue a year now. So me and Scott are both putting a scenario into this one. So yeah, I think he's got I can't remember what the premise for his scenario. Oh, it's 1920s one that he's got, which is putting the band back together again was the title.
Nice.
My one being one that's set in a nightclub in one of the most glamorous holiday destinations that the world is envious of, Northampton.
Oh, Northampton. Well, we're in Alan Moore territory, are we? Well, thanks a lot for coming in, Matt. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you.
Oh, thank you for having me. That's great fun.
And of course, we'll put all the relevant links in the show notes below to Blasphemous Tomes and whatever else we can dig up.
That's the main one. Otherwise, you can find me on various Discord servers or the Yoldi Book of Faces. I'm still on that, but mainly looking at lots of bird groups mainly, because we keep birds. So seeing various other people with their feathered babies and all the antics they get up to.
Ah, nice.
Glad you clarified, because, like, again, Macclesfield, I'm on bird groups. That sounds.
Pigeon Hub is a wonderful group on there if you get to go on there. Yeah.
Nice one. Thanks a lot, Matt. Take care, sir.
Thanks, mate.
All right, we're going to head quickly down the stairs and across the street, because I see on the corner it looks like there could be a group of carol singers gathering, but not too sure. So any group gathering on a corner of a street in Innsmouth is to be avoided, I think.
And is it a carol or is it a chant? Is that a risk you're willing to take? There you go.
Oh, that's true. They could be summoning fish or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. We're not going to hang around to find out. So it's back on the bus. Thanks very much for joining us this episode, folks. What have we got planned for next time? I'm not sure we've got anything planned particularly for next time.
Not as yet, but we'll probably be doing something festive, I imagine. Yes. It's the time of year. I think we're sort of obligated to do something with a festive nature.
Will you be wearing glitter, do you think? I think I might.
Yeah, why not? Yeah.
Why not? As I say, you can't polish a turd, but you can put
glitter on it. Yeah.
All right, thanks again, folks. And as always, thank you to our patrons, and also welcome to our new subscriber on BuzzFeed, Casa Torvald. Thanks very much for signing up. If you want to support the show and help us spread our tentacles, do take a look at our Patreon page. When you sign up, you get access to bonus content for the Innsmouth Book Club and to Strange Shadows, our Clark Ashton Smith podcast. You get a quarterly PDF of Innsmouth news. And, of course, you get free entry to events such as the Innsmouth Literary Festival, which is already in planning for next year. All right, on that note, it's a goodbye from me, Rob Poynton.
And it's goodbye from me, Tim Mendes.